Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And today, I was planning on doing a review video of the Red Room's Gothic horror RPG, but I'm not quite finished looking at it yet. And also another thing came up, so I'm going to talk about that because it's, I guess, technically a little more topical. But first off, so there's the Invisible College, which I was going to compare to to the Gothic RPG, which is a modern day occult espionage and investigation RPG with high magic and all kinds of cool and interesting stuff. Sword and Caravan is a complete campaign setting that you can use for any OSR game or any D&D type game that is set in the Holy Land and the Silk Road during the times from Richard the Lionhearted, all the way to Genghis Khan, right? So from the 1190s to the 1220s, and it covers the whole area, and it's got all the monsters and the magic and all the weird and wonderful stuff that you can find in this exotic setting. And the Gonzo Fantasy Companion, I don't know if any of you saw, but recently Bill the Elf used AI or something like that to make an audio version of all my blog entries from World of the Last Sun since 2012 when the campaign started until I think it was 2020, which was when I stopped writing my blog and instead Bill the Elf opened his channel and started recording our audios. So there's like the entire history of my Last Sun campaign is in there, my Gonzo gaming campaign, and this book comes out of that campaign. It's full of like crazy and interesting stuff that has been actually used in games, right? Because it's all coming out of my own adventures and my own campaigns. I saw people talking recently about how a lot of game designers will make stuff but they don't even actually play now, right? And I can't understand that, right? Like, I play Sword and Caravan. I played a campaign of Invisible College. I'm still playing both Sword and Caravan and World of the Last Sun, right? And Baptism of Fire, right? So like if you're not playing the stuff, it's not going to be the same when you create material that you've never actually ran, like it's not the same experience. Anyhow, that said, you can check out all this stuff. It's in the description of this video, and if you just expand the little more button there, you'll see links to all of my products, all of these, and also, since I was mentioning the Red Room store, you can go to the Pundit files that are still on the Red Room store. The Red Room store is closing at the end of this month because of Portuguese tax reasons that are too complicated for me to understand. But that means that the Pundit Files series, all 40 issues, are going to be gone after that for an unknown amount of time, right? We're probably going to bring them back. We're probably going to bring them to drive-through, if there still is a drive-through by then, which is part of the topic of tonight. They will come back, but we don't know when, right? And based on my current publisher's complicated private life that caused them, in fact, they had to give up publishing Sons of Heaven, and that went instead went over to Mad Scribe, who did Sword and Caravan, and Baptism of Fire. So it's in good hands. But the guy who published all the Pundit Files, Mad Hermit, has got some stuff going down, I guess, and so I have no idea when he would put those back up, when he'd go to the trouble of setting up a point of sale area for us to republish them. Okay, so if you want any of those, go to the Red Room store, check out all 40 issues, look at what they're about, and pick up any that you think you would want, because it might be months or who knows how long until they come back, okay? So please keep that in mind. All right, now on to the topic. I gave a little hint about the topic today. So I have been hearing in a variety of areas an argument that I mean, I've been hearing for quite a while now an argument that AI is going to disrupt the RPG hobby, right? Something that started obviously with AI art. I don't really care about that. Like it doesn't disrupt the hobby. It makes the hobby viable, right? Like if I had to do, like I've got two options, right? If I want to make this book, Sword and Caravan, and have it have art, right? Have in 200 pages more than 2 or 3 pieces of art. I cannot actually rely on an artist as they existed pre-AI, because those people would charge unbelievable amounts of money, knowing that you have no other option. Either that, or you use stock material, or you use copyright free material. But those are very hard to find. Now, as it happens, Sword and Caravan is mostly free material because I'm using old images, but it fits because it's set in an old setting, right? But in other stuff, you have like guys that are asking you for like $700 for a half-page piece of art, right? Like that is not going to be viable for any small print publisher. So the small print books either don't get to make stuff, or they have to learn how to draw themselves, or they have to get something really crappy, or now they can curate and generate AI art, which is what Matt Scribe now does. He didn't do that with Sword and Caravan, I think, because we weren't, there technologically yet. But Baptism of Fire is a magnificent work. It's got AI art, right? AI art that he carefully selected by picking only the specific type, specific genre of historical art. All of the proponents of which, all the examples of which he gave the AI, are people who are long since dead and out of copyright, and had the AI generate art that would fit the genre and context of the book, and boy does it, and so now there's people saying, oh yeah, but now there's books, and there's AI books, right? And I've seen some of this is happening now, right? Like I've noticed apparently that there are people, there are some people just writing entire AI novels, right? But of course, if you just tell the AI, okay, well, write me a 200-page novel, it's going to be trash, right? Like that by itself does not make it a viable product. Except some people are going to make them as such, right? So there's kind of there are two dangers in this, in that the one is that people are somehow cheating by using AI, whether with art or with writing or something like that, and that this is in some way unfair to people who draw differently or who write differently, Now, for the record, I've never used AI for writing prompts or for art, because I'm not involved in picking the art, right? So like I've never actually used AI in that context, What the only thing I occasionally use AI for is to ask Grok some question about whether something on X is real or not. Yeah, half the time I think Grok gets it wrong, but. So this isn't something where I'm making any kind of defense of this, but at the same time, it's not like this is the same stupid argument you see all over the place, right? Those of us who are Gen X are old enough to remember that 20 years ago, a little more than 20 years ago, the exact same arguments that the Tumblr mediocrities, the human mediocrities on Tumblr, who were hoping that they would be able to skirt their lives through, $500 checks to write, quarter panel pictures with really bad art style, because there would be no other option for people than to go with that, Those people are making the exact same arguments that 20 years earlier was made about digital art. That digital art is not real art, that it's cheating, that you are robbing actual artists by making digital art, that these computer-made art is a crime of some kind, and it'll destroy the economy for real artists. All of that, all those arguments were made, right? That it would be an apocalypse, that within a few years, nobody would be able to work because digital art would make everything, with just a tiny group of people, and everybody else would be out of a job. And that, of course, none of that happened. Right? Instead, what happened is that, on the contrary, you got a whole bunch of people who couldn't draw with a pen and pencil, including most of the assholes who are now complaining about AI, right? That learned how to do digital artwork and have been skating by on that for the last several years, you know? So it's very hard for me to take any of this seriously, right? And if you look, you know, at somebody who makes, if you need to, like, first have AI give you a writing prompt, like write a 100-page story for you, and then you'll just go along maybe editing it, there's not going to be anything there, man, anyways, right? Anything that AI can produce, at least at this time, is going to be, at best, imitative of other things that it is that come out of the prompt that it's been given to produce. So it's garbage. It's garbage work, right? It's like, now, will that threaten people who are professional writers of, like, garbage science fiction? Yeah, sure. Okay, right. If you write trash, useless, worthless science fiction novels that are completely generic, AI will do exactly the same, but the guy with the AI will be able to do 15 of them when you write one. You know, so you're screwed. But if you're in any way a creative thinker, or somebody who is any little slight level deeper than that, that's not really the problem, right? Now, there's another problem, though, and this is where we're getting to, like, the RPG hobby and its sales, and drive-through RPG in particular, because I have heard some people saying this, that, you know, the amount of AI product coming into drive-through now has become so terrible that a newbie game designer doesn't stand a chance, right? Like, because he's just going to be like, I don't know. I tried to look at this on drive-through. I mean, I looked at what the latest products were, and I saw a couple when I was, like, scrolling through the newest products that I was, like, thinking, yeah, that's almost certainly AI, right? But the vast majority of what was coming in new was stuff that clearly was not AI, or, you know, was not entirely AI anyways, right? Because the argument I've heard some people making is that, you know, people are just creating 100 or 200 AI modules and throwing them in there, and drive-through is somehow too stupid to notice it, right? Which, by the way, drive-through official policy is that you can't just do AI stuff, right? Like, and you have to state if you've been, like, you know, if you've used AI partially in the product, right? And for what? Which is all probably a good idea, right? Because functionally, AI is not likely to be of the quality that one would want in RPGs at this time. So, you know, you can't do anything about bad writers. But the thing is, if you are unknowingly buying a product that turns out to be AI generated entirely, or almost entirely AI generated, you're very unlikely to be getting a product that is going to be, you know, really worthwhile. So I think it is completely logical, in this stage at least, for drive-through RPG to demand and to put a big notifier, maybe in its own category or something like that, if something is mostly written in AI, right? Like, written by AI. Art is a different subject, right? Because art, it doesn't really matter as much in the context of the game. But if you want to have a game that is actually a viable game, then it better not be entirely done by AI. But I couldn't actually find that much evidence. And I think that a lot of what is being said now is actually a kind of fear-mongering, because from what I saw, either, like, I mean, and there were big Dungeons and Discourse just did a video, the kind of weird Irish person that I always think I'm not going to like them, but I can't help but like their videos. They're not bad, you know. So they just did this thing where they were talking about how basically drive-through is being completely overwhelmed, right, by these crappy AI products, and that this is only to the benefit of something like Wizards, because then Wizards has like D&D Beyond, and it'll force people to go over there and try to sell books there or whatever, right? But again, I don't see it. Is maybe Drive-Thru is eliminating these as they go along, or maybe, maybe there's just been a lot of exaggeration about this. But here's the kicker. Whether or not it's true, it doesn't really matter, okay? Because for a very long time now, before AI was ever a thing, a real manifested thing, it was the case that if you're a newbie game designer and you go on Drive-Thru, you're plucky, full of heart, sort of good feelings and whatever, and put in and make yourself a publisher and you submit your game, there's like a 95% chance your game will sell almost nothing, right? That was true 7 years ago, okay? It was true way before there was AI, okay? So the idea that in the olden days, some complete unknown could show up and make a product and it would become a massive mega hit because it was just posted on Drive-Thru and people just spontaneously found it and started to buy it. That is something that I would say never happened, but let's just say almost never happened, because if not, somebody's going to try to give me an example. Oh no, but this product or this guy or whatever. Okay, so but the thing is, that's never how you actually become well known in the RPG hobby. Okay, as a rule, that is not the way. It's not that you come out of complete left field and then suddenly, because you've got such a wonderful game, it becomes a big hit. Now, this is unfortunately what almost every newbie who thinks that they might want to make a living off of RPGs believes that that's how it works, right? That has been the story since like the 80s, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'll just type up my own game and put it in like, I'll staple it and have them in these booklets, and I'll sell it out of my garage, and in like 3 weeks, I'm going to be buying a mansion and I'll be having hookers and blow, right? It's like, and that's what everybody seems to think for some reason. I don't understand why, right? Because it doesn't make any logical sense when you think about it, right? The likelihood of you becoming like instantly successful in an RPG hobby is practically zero, right? It's especially practically zero if what you're doing is making your own game that is like this is the most sophisticated new RPG that has ever been created, and I've thought of it because I've combined elements of every RPG I know, both Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder. That sort of garbage, right? Somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing, because also your first game is not going to be great, right? It's just not going to be great. In my first game is nowhere near as great as the games that I sell now, right? As much as I might have liked it at the time. Okay? So you're trying, the idea that this product, this Fantasy Heartbreaker, is going to take off somehow. And it was almost never true, because even like the early big hits were still from people that were deeply connected through networking, right? Whether it was Arneson and Gygax, right? Or the guys that founded Chaosium, or, Steve Jackson, right? Or all of these people, right? M.A.R. Barker, who turned out to be a little iffy later. But we only found that out after he was dead. But, these people were all connected through the networking of what had been the wargaming hobby, okay? So there was ways in which they would come together, and so they weren't starting from zero. They weren't coming from nowhere, right? And so this is my suggestion to you, if you are a relatively new game designer who has not yet become extremely successful at it, I would advise you that first and foremost, you don't need to worry about AI, right? Do you want to maybe use AI to do certain things? Well, my experience from what I've seen of it is that at the moment, there's not a lot that it's going to be able to do without you having to make major corrections regardless, right? Like maybe you could get to make a table of, let's say a table of 1D100 encounters, right? So 100 different types of monsters or something. Maybe it could do that, right? Now, if you're told to make original monsters, they'd all be some ways kind of repetitive of other monsters, or they'd be too weird or make no sense at all, right? So those are kind of the options. And then it would also not have a lot of contextual sense in like sandbox play unless you gave it more specific instructions. So the point is, to me, at least, I don't see that as reducing my workload, right? Maybe if there's very simple tables, like if you say, I want you to create a list equally distributed among the alphabet of traditional English names for 50 of which are male names and 50 of which are female names. It would probably get something like that most right. So maybe for like making tables of names, that might work. But don't, if you want to use it, you can use it. You can work on it. And I'm sure that over time, it's going to keep getting better and better, right? And you will be able to use it in a more skillful way. And that's going to be very interesting. I mean, I suspect there may come a time when I will avail myself of that technology in place of because right now, for example, I'm beginning to research my next RPG, which is going to be a historical RPG. I'm not talking about Sons of Heaven, right? Sons of Heaven, I've handed in, and it's going to be a sci-fi RPG, but it's now in the process of publishing, right? What I'm talking about is my own process of writing. I've decided what my next RPG would be. I've decided what time period it's from and what culture, and I've begun doing some deep level research. And I can already see how, with AI, it could be possible to do some of the sort of research that I do with it just bringing up the necessary and chosen material instantly, right? Or in the form of a conversational thing of me, starting out with a general question and then bouncing it off of whatever Grok or Gemini or whatever, bouncing off what I need and specifying it, looking for it and finding it, right? And that would somehow be faster than me having to pore over a crap ton of websites, right? I can imagine that might happen very soon, right? I can imagine it eventually becoming better at making random tables or things like that, right? I imagine that if you fed it an SRD of basic expert rules or something like that, and said, well, everything has to be based within the context of these rules, and then it could make a whole bunch of stuff within the context of those rules pretty soon. And that's fine. That's not great for you, right? But that's not going to make you a successful game designer. I'm sorry. Let me make it really clear here. Drive-Thru has always had a situation where 90% of the sales are from about somewhere between 5 and 10% of the products that Drive-Thru has. Because those are the only ones that people look at and look to buy. Because it's not to do with, how, it doesn't matter how good your game is if no one knows who you are, right? So if you're an up-and-coming game designer and you're worried that the flood of AI is going to destroy your possibility, you know what your argument now becomes? Your argument now becomes, look at me, I'm a human game designer and I'm making this game here, okay? And of course you have to know, first of all, you have to be sure you actually know what you're doing. I've done other videos before about what should you do if you really want to get into the business of RPG making. One of them is you have to actually know what you're doing, right? So the guy in my example there who seemed to think that the only two RPGs were D&D and Pathfinder, right? That is a person who doesn't know what they're doing. They think they do, but they don't. So you have to be sure that you know what you're doing. Look up, find out what RPGs are famous, and find out what made them famous and why, right? And then keeping that in mind, more importantly, do OSR stuff, okay? Because the most successful, if you were to ask you, what's the replacement of 5.5 now? Now that 5.5 has failed, right? What is the dominant RPG, right? Is it Daggerheart? Is it Cosmere? Is it no? The dominant RPG is now the OSR, right? And I know that's kind of cheating because it's more than one RPG, but it is, right? There's nothing now that is selling bigger as a collection than the OSR, because the OSR's whole point is that every RPG in it is compatible with every other. That means it is essentially one system, okay? with a whole bunch of different options of how to run it, and that makes it enormously successful. Your odds of making money either on a Kickstarter or posting on drive-thru goes way up if you actually have an OSR game. So if you want to make a different kind of game than that, you'd better have a really good reason, right? Because especially if what you want is to become a professional, it's not really entirely about what you would like. Once in a while, if you get to like where I am, that kind of thing, you can make a product that you figure is not really going to sell all that well. Like, for example, my 101 Sarmatians book, which is about the Polish nobility, right? It's a great book. It's an incredible source book for Baptism of Fire. But I could see how between that one and the Vikings book was going to sell more, right? Because it's Vikings. But I decided to do the 101 Sarmatians first because I wanted to write about this because it deepens my setting, and because of my own family background, right? So I could do that. And guess what? Because I'm so well known, it still became a bestseller, okay? But you can only do that once you've made it, right? When you are making your chops, you need to find a way in, right? And so unless you're, I guess if you're like Sandy Peterson's grandson, then you've got an automatic way in, right? Sandy posts about you on X, and the RPG Pundit makes a collaboration with you in one of the Pundit files, where he did the map and I did the filling in of the locations, It's the Dungeon of Doom. It's a great adventure, a dungeon adventure. So go check it out on the Red Room. But if you're not someone who's already connected, you have to connect yourself. You have to get into these social networks. You have to start doing something that draws people's attention to you, right? Probably you don't want to be negative, right? Which is ironic that me saying that, because I I made a whole career out of being critical of other people. But you might, unless you're really sure you're going to be good at that, you want to be cautious, right? Because there's an easy way to end up painting yourself into a corner there, and then you can never get out of it, right? I've avoided that, but a lot of other people haven't, right? So, think about how you want to approach it, and go into the place where there are the most people potentially buying your books. Right? Maybe you don't really like the OSR that much. I have trouble understanding how anyone couldn't like it, but okay, let's say you don't. That's fine. But use it, at least the first, until you get somewhere, right? Because that's where the customers are. Nobody is going to be very interested. Maybe your mom, I don't know, but nobody else is going to be very interested in your point by pseudo-narrativist RPG that you've come up with that uses like tic-tac-toe as a mechanic for task resolution, whatever you've come up with, right? Which is like with a lot of newbies, they make either two terrible errors. The one end of the error is like what I just said, right? Something that's like way too weird to live, but you think it's a genius, or the other end, which is that it's like, this book is exactly identical to 3rd edition D&D, except that for some reason it has a much larger number of magical hats, right? Like one tiny difference, right? Both of those types of games do not tend to succeed, okay? What succeeds is actually if you start in the middle of the road, you start with like adventures, you start with some interesting events or whatever, campaign material, or a very simple rule set that is, again, like OSR type, right? But maybe that you find some kind of twist to it, right? Or figure out a genre that the OSR has not yet successfully made a product for, right? So the OSR has almost enormous amounts of fantasy of almost all kinds, right? It's got its fair share of horror. It's got quite a bit of sci-fi. But, maybe I don't think anyone has done a modern day non-magical cop detective show, right? Like, Blue Bloods, but the RPG, maybe that would work. Who knows, right? But so you got to find something like that, right? And you have to promote yourself. It does not work by you just publishing the book and then waiting for people to come. If you build it, they will come is bullshit, right? If you build it, you now have to scream to the rafters every time. What do I do in every video? I show my books. I mention my books. And I mean, I own a house thanks to my RPG career, right? So I'm in good shape, but that is still the natural and correct thing to do if you are promoting your if this is your work, right? And if you're promoting your products, if you believe in your products, you should always do it, in a way that is not meant to be awfully irritating to people, right? Like one of the things I hate is when somebody posts on a YouTube video and they say, "Oh, hey, Pundit, how come no one's ever commented on your video in your video comments about the Bob Jones RPG, right?" The Bob Jones RPG, which is new and exciting, right? So and then of course it's obviously that the guy is writing this is just the guy who invented this game, and it's a game that no one has ever heard of, that this guy has probably spent a lot of money trying to make and has completely failed because he has no idea how to talk to human beings, right? So instead he turns himself into a bot. That is not the way to do it, right? Don't be you can be as self-promoting as you like, but do not be deceptive about it, right? Do not sock puppet. I've never sock puppet to sell. I've never sock puppet in general, pretty much, but certainly never to sell products, right? You don't need to do that. You just need to be honest about the books. And of course, if you can open YouTube or an X or a TikTok account or something, and be able to show something interesting to people, that's great, right? Now, of course, if you are if you're just super shy, or if you recognize correctly, in fact, that you are not socially functional to be a successful influencer, okay, figure out something else then, right? Maybe get a partner, I don't know, or do something. But the job, though, if you want to write an RPG just for yourself, you can just go, you can write it, you can publish it on drive-through. Almost no one will find it probably, but you have done it, right? You could buy a copy for yourself and give some to your friends, right, or whatever, right? And it's no big deal, right? If that's all that matters. Now, if you're thinking that this is going to be a career, then making the RPG is not even half the battle, right? Because you can make that RPG, but it won't sell a damn thing unless you become a sellable commodity, right? Unless you make sure that people know that game, they know, and that game is better. It's what they want, first of all. It's not what you want, it's what they want. And it is something that is sellable, right? That is sellable to people. And then you have to learn how to sell it, okay? So all of those things are necessary. And whether or not Drive-Thru RPG is flooded with 10,000 fake AI games will not matter, because it's always been flooded with crap products that people made and put out there hoping that they would just get a quick buck, right? There's a ton of books there that are cost $1 or $2 that people have written. I think this was way back, before 2010. I remember that there were publishers that all they would do was make these absolutely shitty, useless, terrible modules that they would then price at $1 or $2, right, to try to make them bestsellers and things and it was, and people would buy it because it was cheap, right? And so but that's not a way to build up a business, right? Because what they would do is they publish 50 of these, right? And this is exactly what the model will be for most of the AI products, right? Unless it's just somebody who's actually a real game designer using some AI. So don't worry. That's my message to you, right? I think Dungeons and Discourse is wrong. AI is not going to kill independent game design in any way. It might make it larger. It might not, but it's definitely not going to kill it, right? Because when you have a situation where the vast majority of products become quasi-ersatz, right? They become prefab, done by AI script, then the people who don't do that will become luxury items by default, right? Just by sheer definition of it. And so either way, you're good. If you want to be a guy that works with the AI, you can do that. If you don't, you're one of those guys that is saying, no, we're not making factory suits here. We're making bespoke suits, right? That sort of thing. And you can be okay. Whether you succeed or not will have nothing to do with the AI. It'll have to do with whether you've correctly understood what you have to do in order to have a chance, even a chance, of making a business model for being a small press RPG designer, right? Which is very hard. You're right. There's like 12 people on the entire planet who are small press RPG designers that live full-time for multiple years off of the money that their products make for them, right? Very few, okay? But if you want your RPG to be a success, let's say maybe you just have one, but you really would hope that it would sell well, right? Well, then you still have to follow these rules. You can't just put it out there and then wait for them to come to you. No, you've got to make yourself known, and then from yourself, you make your product known, okay? And I guess that's everything for today. I hope you guys find this interesting, and we will talk to you soon. On Thursday, I believe I'm going to be on the live stream of D&D Dad and Son, who invited me back after I invited him to this is quite the, what is it, the friendly society or whatever. Yeah, I invited him to the RPG Pundit Encounter. Now he's invited me back to his channel, so I'll probably be there on Thursday. And then this Sunday, we will be having the RPG Pundit Encounter, the newest one, the December edition, which will feature Greyhawk Grognard. So we'll be talking about Greyhawk. We'll be talking about the possibility of Wizards of the Coast reviving Greyhawk. We're going to be talking about all kinds of other stuff with the Greyhawk Grognard. I'm sure we're going to be having a very good time, okay? So that's everything for today. Check out all my products. Hit the like button. Share the video if you can. Currently smoking. This is a Lorenzetti Poker plus Argento Roots.